funny
We
the
were
first
funny
time.
the first time. God damn it. Hello, everyone. Your wave is so slow compared to mine.
No, I just held it for longer. Like, you, like, stuck your mark and we're done, and I was like, thank you for being here today.
Ever the princess. So, this is Taylor. What are you doing?
I thought we were gonna talk about you first, and I was...
Oh, it's me, the Scrivener. I've been here the whole time.
And it's me, Taylor. It's my first time here. Actually, it's not my first time. I've done these with Paige, but not with Sarah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, you've never been in a video with me.
This is very exciting.
Yeah, it is.
Yay!
Considering, like, you were my friend first.
I was friends with both of you at the same time.
No, you met me first.
I met you 10 seconds before I met Paige. But technically that does mean I was friends with you first. Anyway, we are here today to talk about
Dora and the Lost City of Gold.
Dora and the Lost City of Gold.
Which we just saw!
As adults.
Yes! We were the only ones in the theater without children.
And I don't feel any shame about that.
Not at all.
Because it was definitely at least partially for us, because we were the age demographic that would have grown up watching this movie, so it's not weird. I actually didn't really watch it. I didn't have TV when I was little, because we got like 3 channels, and I don't think Nickelodeon was one of them, so I don't have a whole lot of like experience having watched Dora as a child, but I love me some satire. So
honestly, in this landscape of Disney live action remakes, seeing the trailer for Dora was like, oh my god, they're like having fun.
yes.
Sounds great. I'm into it.
Yeah, that's I think the best. The thing that this movie had going for it the most was that it was very self-aware. It was very tongue-in-cheek humor, at least for most of it. It was actually surprisingly funny.
Yeah.
Which I guess we'll get to, because we should probably take it like from the beginning.
There's gonna be spoilers in this.
Oh,
but
yeah.
I mean, the non-spoiler version of this is that we really enjoyed it. Go see it with a group of friends.
Yes.
It was fun and not like nearly as cringeworthy as I thought it was gonna be.
Definitely not, yeah.
Not a lot of secondhand embarrassment humor.
One
part
where I was embarrassed to be in the audience, but for the most part it was pretty good. So, plot?
Was it the shitting in the hole scene?
It was the shitting in the hole scene. I don't
Which,
know why
like,
it was in there.
That was the point where I leaned over to you and I'm like, this is the most unrealistic thing in the movie, because all these teenagers would just say shit and not poo.
It was PG. It
was
They
PG,
had to make
so they
sure it
couldn't
got
say-
their PG rating.
Oh god.
We're getting ahead of ourselves. Plot?
So the plot of the movie is basically what's in the trailer, which is that 16-year-old teenage Dora, the explorer,
So that you don't
super
forget.
cool explorer Dora.
She
Not
grows
the
up
city.
definitely in South America, and they
Yeah.
keep referring to the place that she's going as the city, as though it's
like
like
Ecuador.
a nearby big city.
Yeah.
And it's...
And then it's LA.
LA! It's basically the premise was that she grew up in the jungle, she's never been to real school before, and her parents have been searching for
The Lost City of
the
Gold.
Lost City of Gold. They finally have like a big break, but they decide that they're gonna go without her and ship her off to live with her cousin instead.
And,
for
like,
reasons that didn't really make sense.
And it would have been so easy. This is like a really good example of a common writing issue that occurred throughout the movie, which was like
Overcomplicating?
overcomplicating something that was incredibly simple.
Yes.
Like, and just not landing the mark on something that could have been really easy. Like,
Oh my God,
she
yeah.
injures herself right before they decide to send her off to the city, but it still feels like it comes out of nowhere. Even though, like, she fell to the bottom of a cliff, there's
Yes.
a perfectly reasonable
Yeah.
reason to have her go live in the
setup
city.
was there. The setup was, you're reckless and impulsive. We don't want you on this trip because it's going to be very dangerous, so we're going to go do it, and you go live with your cousin until we get back. And instead, they framed it as like, you've been in the jungle for too long. You need to
You're
learn how to be around
awkward.
other people. You're awkward. And I was like, that doesn't match. That was the first time that we were like, that doesn't. All right, whatever. We'll keep going with it.
Just these loose ends where you're like, this would not be very difficult to just
No.
tie up.
No.
But you just leave it open until a couple minutes later when you're like, okay, I guess this is happening. We're not going to address that. It's fine. We'll just keep going.
Nobody proofread this script. They did one run of it and they were like, yeah, this is fine.
It felt a little shaggy.
A little bit. Anyway, they ship her off to live in the big
LA.
city, which is LA. And honestly, that was where the movie was the best.
You're the published
I
writer.
know. I'm so good at words. I'm an editor too, and I just
Oh
I don't
yeah.
know any words.
You might recognize Taylor's face not only from other videos, but because we recently talked about her debut novel, Collateral Damage, which is about superheroes.
I wrote a book and it was a satire of the superhero genre, so another reason why I'm the perfect person to talk about the Dora the Explorer movie. Anyway.
Put that in your Twitter bio.
I'm the foremost expert on satire of media meant for children. So they send her off to go be in LA and she goes to school for the first time.
You leaned over and you're like, I love Enchanted.
Because you've got this perky, optimistic, prone to bursting into song, straight out of a cartoon character, having a fish out of water experience with people that are just like, can you not? Can you stop?
With a very jaded guy.
Who was her cousin.
Diego.
Great
Diego, you
dynamic.
might remember from the TV show. This movie remembers the TV show.
Do you remember the TV show?
She goes off to high school, living with, her aunt and uncle, her cousin Diego, and her grandmother, who then disappeared from the movie
Oh
after
my god,
she
I
left.
forgot about her.
Did you remember the grandma? Because she was there.
She had like her one moment of like elderly imparting wisdom, and
Then she
that's-
disappeared.
She'd served her purpose in the narrative. That's all grandmothers are good for in films, is imparting elderly wisdom. She gets to school and we meet the rest of the supporting cast, which is two characters whose names we immediately forgot and then didn't remember until 2/3 of the way
I
through the movie.
swear, they didn't say them
They
until
didn't say
halfway
them again.
through the movie.
They definitely said Sammy's first. Randy, I don't think ever got introduced.
Well, I mean, Sammy and Randy are just way too similar names.
They are. Sammy was the overachiever, type A, class president.
Well, she's the smart girl.
She's the smart girl.
She's the smart girl, and that's her whole thing.
That's her whole
and Dora
shtick.
shows up, and she's smart and pretty and fun, and she's like, oh no, this bitch.
Only one smart girl per school. Those are the rules.
I mean, when we met her character, and she was like, you're smart. Like, I immediately got what she meant.
That was the
It's
exact
like,
line.
that's my identity. You can't take it. I'm the smart one here.
Get your own thing. You can't be smart and pretty and have knives in your backpack. That's too many things.
We're not saying that this was like a misogyny thing or anything. It was very much like a thing that was restricted to her as a character,
yeah.
of her being like, no, I need to be the one that's unique
Yes.
here for being smart and a know-it-all.
It was funny because I feel like most high school movies, the reason that the misogyny gets worked into it is because it's over a boy. It's
Yeah.
like there's a new girl and she's all these things and there's a boy involved. My boyfriend's gonna like her better, and that was like not even a little bit.
Yeah, they
part of it.
circumvented that entirely by having the main boy be her cousin. So
Exactly. And it was
well.
nice because they had a good friendship arc.
they did have a nice friendship arc.
Yeah.
It's one of the only character arcs in the whole movie.
It was nice though.
Yeah, Randy.
Randy, who is nerd friend.
So clearly in love with her.
Oh yeah.
But not in a weird way.
It was in a very realistic way in that Randy was the bullied nerd kid who would obviously have a crush on a cute new girl with all of the same interests as him.
Yeah.
It made sense.
They all get kidnapped by mercenaries who are looking for her parents. Then we meet this other guy who shows up, and don't worry, he's totally not suspiciously there. He shows up to rescue them because he's a friend of her parents. He's not.
He showed up and I was like, he's the bad guy.
He's the bad guy.
But it didn't make any sense. Okay, sorry. I'm gonna let you continue the plot because I keep interrupting.
It's okay, it's okay. Then we have, the journey, going through the jungle, looking for the parents. We meet up with the parents. Turns out Alejandro's the bad guy. Who knew? And then we find the lost city of gold, and honestly a lot of stuff happens in between there, and I'm really not quite sure about all of it. But like,
The cartoon hallucination.
the cartoon
Probably the
hallucination-
best part of the movie.
You know what? I'm just gonna put the description of the plot just
We're doing great.
right here. It kind of fell apart in the last half.
It did. And it was really unfortunate because it started out really strong. Once they got to the jungle, the pacing started slowing down a little bit because it turned from a fish out of water story into like a standard adventure story.
Yeah.
And a lot of the comedy and I guess warmth of the movie came from everybody trying to figure out what Dora's deal was because she was so weird. So a lot of the humor came from other people commenting on how bizarre her behavior was.
Yeah.
But part part of the character arcs was everybody coming to accept her for her weirdness.
Yeah.
And then there were no more jokes for the rest of the movie.
I would say about 50% of the jokes become body humor jokes.
Yep.
Like bodily function humor.
Which is not my thing.
No. I didn't even really hear the kids laughing at it very much.
No, me neither. And this theater was 80% kids.
There was a literal poop joke, and I did not
went
hear
on
a
for a
single
very
kid
long time.
laughing at all. I think because it was probably a little too complicated.
It was.
Of a joke. It was a joke about going into the bathroom in the jungle, but like I don't think it was kid understandable enough for them to find it funny.
It wasn't even really
It was
a
based
joke.
entirely on like fears that you have as an adult.
Yeah, that's true. That you like don't want anybody watching you while you take a shit. That was it.
And then of course there's the let's make fart noises with the quicksand scene, which went on a bit too long. And I was also like, it's f***ing quicksand. What are you doing? And like, you know, I will say this movie imparted some pretty valuable survival information as far as the quicksand floating on top of it goes.
Yes.
So I've always heard that you're supposed to lie on your back so that you can float on top of the quicksand and then pull it like backstroke away, but like I'd never seen it applied.
Now we know.
Yeah, now we know now we know what it looks like. So
Yes.
yeah.
Because this movie was a documentary and everything that happened within it should be taken exactly at face value.
Even when the ancient Inca warriors showed up with magic. All of a sudden,
it
like
started so strong.
in the last 10 minutes of the movie, magic was introduced.
Magic and angry gods. I mean, apart from like the talking monkey, everything was very realistic up until that
And the
point.
fox!
And the fox.
Swiper is in this movie, and I think the funniest joke in the whole movie was like, there was a fox with a mask. What does he need a mask for? Like,
What does a fox need with anonymity? That was the best. That was the best joke. And then everything fell out.
like
I said,
Benicio del Toro as Swiper the fox was
He was-
really quite great.
he was having fun with it.
I mean, I think that the mask thing was the best joke, but I think the one that made me laugh the most was where, like, you see him marching across the gate, and he's like, we're guarding the gate, we're guarding the gate, and I just Benicio del Toro chanting that like 20 times. It was so weird.
The best part of the movie was how much fun all of the actors were having with these characters. It wouldn't have worked otherwise.
Yeah.
Everyone was so sincere and so into their roles.
Nobody was embarrassed to be there.
Nobody was embarrassed.
Isabela Moner.
She was so committed to the bit of being this like 16-year-old girl who's acting like a 6-year-old at public school.
Yeah.
And
Which I thought was gonna wear out really quickly, given how they portrayed her in the trailers.
Yeah. She was adorable.
She was adorable and sincere, and I think the biggest thing is that watching the trailers, you might think that she's gonna be really stupid, and that's where a lot of the jokes are gonna come from.
Yeah. And she wasn't.
And she wasn't.
She was the smartest
She's just
character in the movie.
Very, very cheerful.
Mm-hmm. All the characters individually were really, really strong, and their dynamics with each other were really strong. And I think that's what made the movie so good up until like the last third.
Yeah.
So do you want to talk about the terrible villain twist?
Sure. This mysterious figure named Alejandro just shows up to rescue them, and then they run away from the bad guys, and like, it's very obvious if you have watched literally any action-adventure movie like this that he's a bad guy. And then they have a near-death experience, and he admits that he's a bad guy. Subtly enough that, you know, if you're a child not paying attention, you won't notice that he's admitted to being a bad guy.
He said, "I'm a bad guy."
And then he's the leader of the operation of mercenaries that are looking for the city, and it's just like, okay, I wasn't aware that we had a leader. The group dynamics of the mercenaries were a little bit weird.
Yes. Him being a twist villain was fine. Whatever. If you want to do that, that's fine.
Yeah.
But if you go back and look at like every scene that he's in leading up to it, it doesn't add up. It's like shown that the reason that he was with them was because he wanted the kids to lead him to Dora's parents so that they could find the city, because I guess they assumed that the parents knew where the city was.
You know, that was confusing, because didn't the bad guys already have the map?
They did already have the map.
What did they need the parents for?
I don't know!
See what we mean? There were just some writing things that were like, you could have made this easier on yourselves.
Yeah. Him being a leader made no sense. If he was like a lackey of one of them who
Yeah.
had been like sent after the kids to gain their trust and lead the rest of the bad guys to them, it would have made a little bit more sense. But him being the leader really didn't work.
He didn't feel like the leader of the mercenaries.
No.
He just felt like the guy
Yeah.
that they picked. I think the thing is, like, it's not that it couldn't have worked if he was the leader. It's just like we didn't have another face for the mercenaries. Like,
That's
they were
true.
just the mercenaries.
I can't even remember what any of them
This
looked
movie-
or acted like.
Honestly, I don't mind a villain in this movie because it's par for the course with a family action adventure movie like this. But we didn't have one. That's the thing. I think they tried to have one.
Yeah.
And he was the twist villain, I guess. But like the thing is that he was so much more fun to watch when he was anxious and scared. That like when he turns around and does this weird like I'm a cold villain thing, it just felt not right. I'm like, I don't believe this.
He became very, like, mustache twirling. This was my plan the whole time. You know what it was like? It was like Hans in Frozen.
Yeah.
How, like, he's like, I'm the twist villain. And you're like, that doesn't add up with anything you've been doing up until this point.
And I mean, like, Hans in Frozen at least has the benefit of our knowledge of the Disney formula working against us so strongly that when he does reveal himself, it's scary because he's like, I'm gonna leave you here to die. And I'm usually the prince here, so f*** you! There's not a lot of build up to it because I think that's what they were going for, frankly. I don't think they wanted you to suspect anything.
That's true.
Anything at all. But like,
This
here
one was
it's
just
like he showed up immediately and we're like, he's a bad guy.
Because that's like the thing to do now is to
Yeah.
just have twist villains for the sake of having them.
Yeah.
So they were like, every other movie has a twist villain, so ours will too. I feel like there's like a thing in movies right now where they're so afraid of being predictable that they're intentionally picking the option that makes less sense because they want to like surprise everybody.
Honestly, I think the movie needed a little bit more of a cohesive antagonistic force, like some sort of clock or something to race against. Like,
that's true.
I think that the stakes were actually quite low now that I'm thinking about it.
That's why the pacing lagged, especially like from the second half. I think.
Yeah.
We don't know what the stakes are if we don't find what we're looking for. We don't know what we're looking for. Like, there wasn't really anything driving the plot forward except for like, I'm trying to find my parents.
Yeah.
But like, or what?
Yeah.
What'll happen if you don't? So.
Except that like, they're just missing.
They're just missing. I mean, yeah.
But they seem to be fine.
They were fine. When they found
fine.
them, they like were like, we've been missing? Everything's fine.
Yeah.
And then the villain showed up.
Actually, there was never really any explanation of why they went into hiding. Oh my god. There's so much missing in this movie.
That's a good point. They just, their radio was like too far away from the satellite and they were like, oh well, our daughter will figure it out.
It's fascinating that now that we're like away from the movie, we're seeing all of these things where there were like these weird like holes in the writing. But when we were in it, we just noticed the biggest ones because it was just a fun kind of adventure that we were having. Honestly, the twist villain reminded me, and like the magic reminded me so much of like every Indiana Jones movie.
Yeah.
When the magic showed up, I was like, sure, why not? I mean, sure, whatever.
The magic, we haven't explained yet, and the magic was that at the very end, they finally find the lost city of gold, and the big final conflict was that Swiper steals a golden monkey that angers these ruthless gods that apparently live below the city that we've never heard of or about before. They want their statue back, so they start collapsing the whole city around all of the characters, and they're all running out, and then Dora's like, wait, I know what to do, and grabs the monkey, puts it back, not even on the right pedestal, because that was like definitely way farther away, just on the nearest pedestal, and apparently that's enough to reset everything, and the crumbled city pieces itself back together again, and the sun comes out.
Yeah.
And
that's not to mention the old woman who we met earlier, who then turned out to be like a much younger lady in disguise with magic, who, I don't know. I will say that when she transformed, the first thought I had was Sacagawea, but that's not right.
What?
Well, I don't know. Like, I mean, just the image of her, like her face just like reminded me so much of what Sacagawea looks like on the dollar coin that we have. so shut up. Leave me alone. There were some things that didn't really go anywhere.
No.
Is what we're saying.
And like the whole end was most of those things. And it was weird because it disconnected the characters from any type of theme. So like,
yeah, the movie did not really have a theme.
The movie did not have a theme. The direction that it would have made the most sense for it to go in would be that because Dora is being criticized and ridiculed for being so optimistic and perky, it would have made sense for her attitude to be what saved them or what, you know, found the solution to the conflict. But what actually ended up happening was that she just put the rock back on the pedestal, which doesn't really take any type of intelligence and definitely doesn't take any type of optimism or perkiness.
Yeah.
So then it's like, what did we have to learn? And like, if she had, we talked about this earlier, if she had changed the villain for the better because he spent a good amount of time with them, and they saved his life a bunch of times, and so if he had like, you know, switched sides against the mercenaries.
That felt like where his arc was heading.
Yeah.
Given the way that he interacted with them, it really felt like the conclusion of that story was that he was going to decide to not be a bad guy anymore.
Yeah.
And it didn't happen. He remained bad for the whole movie. And it was just weird. It was weird.
So I almost feel like they set up this character originally like he was gonna switch sides, so that when he didn't switch sides, like that would be a surprise.
Yeah.
And it's like, stop worrying about what's gonna surprise your audience or subvert your audience's expectations, and just tell a story that makes sense.
Yeah. I don't think Dora really learned anything. Like, I mean, a story is all about the day it was different, or like learning something or changing somehow.
Yeah.
And like,
Or changing the people around you.
Yeah, and I think the only thing that really happened in this movie was time. At the end, like, her parents give her the option to come into the jungle with them, and that's what she wanted at the beginning, and then she decides to go back to high school. There's not really any reason given as to why she chooses that.
But she has friends now.
Yeah, it's
the real treasure was the friends that we made along the way.
As they said in the musical number. I feel like a musical number was probably one of the weakest parts.
Why did it end with a musical number?
It was still a better musical number than, like, almost anything in Aladdin.
But that's a different video. Oh my god.
I still really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Like,
it
I'm
was
glad
a solid
I went.
B- movie.
Like, to me, I felt like it was still better than the Disney live-action movies.
Yeah?
Like, it ran pretty far on a story that got really mushy at the end because it just had a lot of momentum. It had a lot of action momentum. That carried us through the whole movie.
It's true. And the characters were strong.
Yeah.
They're strong characters. And, you know, if your narrative is character-driven, you can get pretty far.
I also felt like, given the different things where she would kind of pipe up and say these larger intellectual statements about, like, the state of, like, environmental degradation and colonization and stuff, that we were gonna get to an ending that kind of said something about those things as well, but it didn't. Again, it's one of those things that was like, it was right there in front of you. Why didn't you do it?
Like, I'm tired of writing. They'd written the first 2/3 and they were like, I don't want to do this anymore. It's a sentiment I can relate to.
We'll let autocorrect decide.
Yeah. They had a predictive text bot finish the movie for them.
And I mean, at least this movie didn't feel like it was entirely written by predictive text bot.
Only the last third.
Like, Christopher Robin is a movie I felt like was entirely written by a predictive text bot.
Oh, Christopher Robin. They were like, what will make everyone sad?
We really want to talk about a movie where you don't know the audience? Christopher Robin. That movie's not for anybody. Like, it's for disenchanted adults who work corporate jobs, and it's for children? Question mark? Okay, I never got used to Boots. Boots looked so weird.
Bad CGI.
Oh my god, so weird. When he showed up the first time, I was like, I'm not gonna get used to that face. And the whole movie, I was like, nope.
Would the live action quality of the film have been improved if it was a photorealistic monkey and fox, or would it have been worse?
I don't know.
And we never will.
Oh, we haven't talked about the best sequence in the whole movie.
Oh my god, I know!
They
themselves into cartoon characters.
It was so good!
I'm the only person in the world that saw The Good Dinosaur, and it was a terrible movie. And the worst part of The Good Dinosaur was that part with the hallucinogenic berries.
I've seen that part.
And this was that was like the darkest timeline version of this scene. Because this was the funniest thing I've ever seen.
Oh man. They made plenty of references and callbacks to the format of the show. The first thing that made us laugh a lot was where she's like a teenager and she's like looking at the poison frog or whatever, and then she turns, like looks dead into the camera.
Can you say neurotoxicity? We were like, oh, it's gonna be a funny movie!
We just needed more jokes in the second half.
Yeah.
We needed more jokes than just like, isn't it funny that Dora's cheerful? I'm thinking about all of the different ways in the second half of the movie where we had like booby traps and how like we didn't need them all.
It felt like they had like a bunch of different things because they wanted each of the characters to have a moment of like, I know how to solve this. But because everybody had to have their own I know how to solve this moment, it kind of undermined Dora's whole thing, which is supposed to be that she's the only person who would know how to solve these kinds of issues because she grew up in the jungle.
Yeah.
But instead they had the guy that could hold his breath for 7 minutes dealing with the water issue, and the other girl noticed that the woman had like the mark on her arm, and so that meant that she was bad. And
well, what was funny about that, she learns that information about, you know, somewhere in the middle of the movie, and then they run back and reunite with the rest of the group
because they'd split up.
Because they'd split up to go home. And then the reason they go back is because the woman that they meet who's going to take them back has the same tattoo as like some spears that were shot at them earlier. But what's weird about that is like they reunite and nobody shares that information with Dora until the very end of the movie when they just show back up again and we're like, oh yeah, these people who we never met before, but I guess that came back around. I don't understand why the script wasn't super tight. It was a really easy story to write.
We're so close.
It's so close.
We're so close. You just and you went the other way and it didn't make any sense. It's for kids. It's for kids. It's fine. But it was overall an enjoyable experience.
Yeah. It reminded me a tiny bit of like the Spy Kids movies. Like just in the sense of the loud family, weird kind of action adventure film that also has like a mostly like Latinx cast.
Agreed.
There really was like one white person in this movie, and it was Randy.
He was so pure.
He was really quite adorable.
Such a mess. He was trying so hard.
They were all so charming.
They were all very charming. It was a good time.
Can't stress how good Isabela Moner was as Dora.
The most comparable movie I feel like that has come out recently would be like the Kim Possible remake, and this was like head and shoulders above that. Because the Kim Possible remake like took itself too seriously. It was trying to be like a shot for shot. Not shot for shot, but like a...
I didn't end up seeing it. There were some people who were very, very upset by it, and me, I was just like, you know what? It's not for me, and I'm fine with that. It doesn't need to be good.
Yeah, I didn't watch it. I just
have
watched
the
a bunch
original
of YouTube videos analyzing it. That's where all of this content is coming from. I'm just reciting things other people said.
I mean, you haven't seen the movie for yourself, Taylor. You
have
have the gall
I know,
to critique it.
I'm a fake, but based on the amount of footage that I've seen, I would say that this is probably better.
I mean, honestly, when I try to tell my parents about movies that I haven't seen, and they say, like, have you seen it? And I'm like, no, but I've read a lot of reviews of people who, like, know what they're talking about. And they're like, well, how can you know if you haven't seen it? And I'm like, because I
just do!
I just do!
Anyway.
Leave me alone!
That was Dora and the Lost City of Gold. A
You know-
not terrible movie.
You know, it could have been really bad.
Uh-huh.
I think what the trailer promised us, it delivered on.
Yeah, it's one of those movies where I think sometimes you worry that all of the jokes are already in the trailer.
That was not the case.
And it was not at all the case. In fact, I'd say that they kept most of the funniest jokes for the movie itself.
Yeah. So that was fun. Thanks for driving all the way over here to see it with me.
No problem.
I think I had more fun not seeing it alone.
I think I did too. It was worth it.
Because then, like, I could hear you laughing loud too.
So you weren't the only one laughing in this theater of children.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Like 4 out of 5 stars.
Yeah.
3.5 out of 5 stars.
I enjoyed it.
Woo!
It was like Indiana Jones, but more kid-oriented. Could have done with less potty humor, but it was fine.
It was fine. It was good. It was enjoyable, and we had a good time. And yeah, definitely go check it out.
Yeah. Hope you all enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching. If you liked it, go ahead and give us a thumbs up and subscribe to the Princess of the Scrivener for more of these kinds of movie reviews. And I don't know, just analysis. Just stuff.
That was a really good sign-off.
Thank you.
You did great.
Thanks. The YouTube algorithm is going to do its best to not let me succeed, so why bother?
Definitely keep that in.
What's even the point, YouTube?
For fun!
Princess, we'll see you real soon.
Finger guys.